What's the most wholesome experience you've had? I was in an abusive relationship and it ended with him beating me up very badly. Broken ribs, bruises, and cuts all over me. He was arrested, but the process and aftermath was hell. It was spring and the weather was warming, but for weeks I wore long sleeves and high collars to hide the cuts and bruises. Eventually everything healed and faded except one very deep bruise on my upper arm. I had had enough of hiding them in shame, so one day I said fuck it and wore short sleeves. I was standing in line in Walmart and noticed this rough biker-looking dude staring at me. I thought he was checking me out or whatever. Then he asked me how I got that bruise on my arm. I stumbled answering, and he outright asked, "Did somebody hurt you?" For some reason, I decided to be honest and not lie in shame, so I said out loud, "Yes, somebody hurt me." He looked at me, and in the kindest voice said, "You did not deserve that. Whoever it was will get what's due to them one day." For some reason, that was a turning point for me. I knew then that I was going to be okay. I knew that no matter how things turned out legally, that I was going to be okay. I never saw that man again, but I honestly think he was an angel sent to give me a message. When we first started dating, I was terrible with money. I wasn't in a lot of debt, but I was really far behind on it. Like 4 car payments behind, no savings, had trouble buying dog food, etc. Eventually, I just broke and sat her down, explaining how bad I was with money, and told her that I'd understand if this was a deal breaker. I then asked for help and handed her my paycheck. If she'd teach me then, I'd learn. Without hesitation or asking more questions, she helped me write out a plan. She dipped into her own savings to get my car payment caught up. She held me accountable for everything. Nearly 5 years of marriage now. With her help, but also my own hard work, my credit score went from 490 to 752. We have savings. I don't fear my debit card getting declined. I answer my phone because I know it isn't a creditor. I have a wife who I know has my back despite my flaws or mistakes, and has no problem helping me become better. I always knew I loved her. It was seeing that she had zero fear using her own money to bail me out of a problem that showed me she already planned on being with me long term.
I have a bear like this too. Little Bear was waiting in my nursery when my mom brought me home from the hospital, and it has been with me every single night ever since. Except for one night when Southwest lost my suitcase. Never put Bear in a checked bag again. When I met my now husband back in college, I remember being kind of embarrassed about it the first time he slept over and saw it. He just kind of chuckled and suggested we just put it under the bed during our sexy times. When we got married and I slipped it into my overnight bag the night of my wedding, I didn't actually intend to bring it out, I just wanted it with me. On our way to our room, we were talking about how tired we both were and asking each other if it was okay for us to just crash instead of have our big wedding night. We both decided crashing was the better option. Yay for sleep, lol. We started changing out of the wedding garb and getting cozy. I came out of the bathroom and he had turned down the room, and there on my pillow was my bear. I teased him about enabling me and asked if he was really okay with it, just to make sure he wasn't weirded out for some reason. He just said it was part of who I was, and if it made me comfortable, then who was he to judge? And then he said at least I knew when to remove the teddy bear from the bed so it didn't get awkward during the fun bits. 18 years later, both the beer and the man are still in my bed. Beer pretty much lives under the pillow as he's getting pretty old, but I always know it's there. And the beer still gets tossed under the bed so he doesn't get caught up in certain activities.
I keep a very wholesome secret from my husband. My husband and I have a good relationship, and I am close with his family. He is a huge mama's boy, but in a healthy way. Like everyone, my husband sometimes goes through spells where he has a bad couple of days and needs some cheering up. When this happens, most of the time I can help him through it, but occasionally he just needs some extra support. He's been experiencing one of these spells recently. It happened because of some things involving his hometown, and after a day I realized that he needed to talk to someone else, especially since I don't know most of the people involved. As I have for the last few years, I text my mother-in-law to let her know that he was having a rough time and could use a phone call. After I got home from work today, my husband and I were relaxing on the couch watching TV when I heard his phone ring. His voice immediately perked up, and I heard him chatting happily, then a little more reserved as he asked her for advice about the situation. After a while, my husband came back into the living room and said something along the lines of, "Wow, that was Mom. She always seems to know when I'm upset, and just what to say." It makes me so happy to know that my mother-in-law and I conspiring together to cheer him up actually works. Watching him go from feeling down in the dumps to loved and protected is the absolute best feeling. If your cup is full enough, don't forget to go the extra mile to help someone today. I pooped my pants and my husband cleaned it off of me. Wholesome. So I, 22 female, and my husband, 24 male, had our first baby girl this past year. While pregnant, I was extremely adamant about staying healthy and active, partly because I was so scared to do anything wrong, but mostly because of body aches, nausea, and overall restlessness. Anyway, to the story. My husband and I would go on walks to a park close by our house. Overall, it was about a 2.5-mile walk. Every evening when the heat subsided a bit. One afternoon when I was so uncomfortable, I decided to go a little earlier while Hubs was doing some housework. I hopped in my truck and left. It was so nice, my hip pain almost immediately felt relief. Right. As I reached the furthest point away from my vehicle, I started getting really bad Braxton Hicks. So I slowed down, took some deep breaths and focused on some belly work. Well, the contractions got worse, to the point of clutching my stomach and gritting my teeth. Then I realized, these weren't contractions, but the worst poop cramps I have ever experienced. I took a look around me thinking about worst-case scenario. Where could I hide myself and let this monster of a storm flow? To my disappointment, I saw nowhere. There were also others walking on the same path. If I started running into a bush, it was almost certain someone would follow me since I was very clearly very pregnant. So I made the choice to walk as fast as I could back to my truck. There I went waddling away, clenching my cheeks like a dog when you're trying to get something out of their mouth. I was so close to victory. Until about 5 feet to the truck. It hits me. No matter how hard I was going to try, I could no longer keep it in. Now in front of the other 8 people getting back to their vehicle. Every step I took, I sunk to the floor. Once I was completely on my knees, the floodgates let loose. Sitting there, crying, yet feeling like God has touched my life with sweet, sweet relief. Once it was over, I looked up at the terrified faces around me. They knew. The faces of mothers who had just put their children in the cars and fathers extremely confused. Well, the looks turned from worried to disgusted. They just got in their cars and left, leaving me in the puddle of my own disappointment. I decided to focus on what was happening and how to fix it instead of digging myself deeper into the immense humiliation I had already felt. So now my bigger problem? How would I get into my clean truck? The towels I put in case I went into labor, gone, along with all of the napkins and microfiber cloths. So I just sat, half humiliated, half in shock, until I look up. Here comes husband, riding toward me, towel hanging out of his window like a glorious knight waving his valiant flag, screaming, asking me if my water had broken. Lol. He helped me up and tried putting me in the front seat, but I refused. I was not going to relive this horrible experience later on when it needed to be cleaned up, nor was I going to sit knowing Hubs was cleaning up my literal shit. So home we went while I sat in the bed of the truck, feeling like every house we passed got a waft of the tsunami I had just released. When we got home, my loving husband helped me walk into the backyard, where he took my leggings off and lovingly hosed me down and washed my legs. I was crying and felt so humiliated, degraded. But he never let me feel that way. He was there with kind words and loving hands. I then got into the shower where Epsom salts and some music waited for me, followed up by a heated towel and some shoulder rubs. That night we packed both of our trucks again, along with some extra paper towels. I went to bed with my favorite PJs, chocolate, and the best cuddles. Hubs showed me so much love and kindness that day. And he has never mentioned it since. Needless to say, I love this man. AIT for divorcing my wife because I want someone better? My wife and I are married for 6 years now. We have a daughter together. Our marriage became bad after our daughter was born. A big point of contention was surname for our daughter. I wanted mine, she wanted hers. We compromised on hers after a lot of bickering on her surname. I conceded to the argument that she was carrying the baby, so she deserves the honor. And I was okay with it. It made sense. But it always sat in some unreachable corner of my mind. Now I know why. For 3 years she gave all her love to our daughter. It was like I wasn't even in her radar. I was kept at a distance. When I communicated, I was accused of being jealous of my daughter. Some part of me knew that I was, and I felt ashamed. Soon it became the new normal. I was lonely, and I learned to be okay with it. My boss invited me to his house for dinner. He is a great man, very supportive. His wife was very affectionate towards him, while mine was distant and naggy. I saw their relationship, and I compared it to mine, and I came to a realization that my wife is not into me. Maybe she never was. Now she has someone she actually loves, my daughter. So she doesn't need me for companionship. I am just an annoyance. It was not a sad realization. It was freeing. I want what my boss has. A woman who loves me. That's not my wife. That surname bit came to my mind. My boss's wife is proud to take his last name, to give her children his last name. Mine doesn't feel that pride. I told my wife that I want a divorce. I gave her my reason. I talked about my feelings. She was angry and annoyed. Told me that we have family together and I should grow up, that up and downs are part of marriage. She said she will try to be better from then on. She tried to give me shit about what I said about surnames, called it chauvinistic. I decided not to argue back. I started the process of divorce, and she was served 2 days ago. She was shocked. I have never seen her like that. It was like she couldn't even believe that I was actually divorcing her. In her defense, it all happened in 3 weeks span. She is now trying to make me stop divorce. She said she will take my name and give our daughter my name if that's what I want. She still doesn't get it. Surnames were just symptoms of the bigger problems. She just does not love me enough. I want someone who does. She wants therapy, but I don't see how that will help us in any way. She said our problems can be fixed, and not to gamble my life and our daughter's life like that. There is no guarantees. She is not wrong. I am playing a huge gamble with my life. Bye. I do want a woman who can love me like the wife of my boss loves him. I want a better wife than my current wife. Aida for telling my wife she needs to knock on my separate bedroom door before entering. About a year ago, my 44M wife, 38F, suggested us getting separate bedrooms since she had a lot of trouble sleeping together, and it would allow us to have our own privacy. I was initially not a big fan of the idea because I thought it would affect our relationship and our connection. But after talking about it for a few months, I reluctantly agreed. She also suggested that we need to respect each other's privacy by knocking on each other's doors before entering. So for about a year now, we have had our own bedrooms, and to my surprise, I have been enjoying it a lot. We still sleep together a few times a week, but do spend the majority of the nights separately. I have really enjoyed the privacy and having the opportunity to unwind by myself without having to worry about anything else. But my wife, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be enjoying it as much. She has started spending more nights with me in my bedroom, which is fine. But she has now started acting like we don't have any agreements at all. At first, she was very adamant about knocking on each other's doors before entering each other's rooms and would frequently call me out on it if I didn't. But now she has started acting like my separate bedroom is her bedroom, and she doesn't knock before entering my room like we agreed to. When I called her out on it, she got really emotional and angry with me. She told me that I didn't care about her and I didn't want to have her around anymore. She also said that it really hurts her feelings. But I just referred to all the rules she had made up, and that has gotten her really upset. Aita for divorcing my husband for a man who gave me a kidney? I, 43F, have a genetic kidney condition, and I lost the function of both of my kidneys a couple of years ago. I was on dialysis and on the transplant list. I never drank alcohol or did anything to exacerbate my disease. It's just luck of the draw. My husband John, 49M, refused to get tested. It's his choice, and I can't make him. I have a friend Sam, 34M, who donated his kidney. He didn't directly donate it to me because we were not compatible, but it was part of a kidney chain. Because of him, I was able to get a kidney. I thanked him profusely because he literally saved my life. We had not been close friends, and I asked him why he decided to donate. He told me that he always harbored affection for me, but did nothing because I was married. When he found out I needed a kidney, he didn't want me to die. It turned my world upside down. I did not want to engage in an emotional affair. So when I did question my feelings for my husband, I immediately went for separation. I was happier apart from John. I filed for divorce. John was blindsided and devastated at what I had done. People I know have called me cold for what I had done. Eta,